Good afternoon, my Eco 2301 student. Yesterday we finished a market structure that was on monopoly. We also did perfect competition the other day. Now today we're gonna talk about the third market structure, which is crucial to the understanding of the different types of markets that exist out there. And this is gonna be oligopoly. Okay. So I'm gonna open my screen and I'm gonna share with you the learning objective for this particular topic, which is chapter 15. So here's going to be the outline or the learning objective of oligopoly and game theory. Okay, we're going to talk about business strategy. If you have a competitor, what are the business strategy that you need to put in place to make sure that you maximize, because your competitor is watching you. Oligopoly, as the name suggests, there it comes from the what two Latin word. So the word oligo. So oligopoly basically is basically what singular word, but if you have 2 or 3 more farms, then it becomes what we call oligopolies in plural. So the first word here, oligo, means few. Polis here means sellers. So the word oligopoly means a market which is characterized by few sellers. Okay, and those sellers might be selling like closely related goods. We can think about in retail, you can think about like two dominant firms in the construction in the United States. If you want to buy any construction stuff for your house, you either go to Home Depot or you go to Lowe's. So those two can be like oligopoly market. You could see the market for computers, the oil market. You think about the market for cars, that could be oligopoly market. Okay, so the outline of this chapter here, we're going to talk about how oligopoly firms can choose to form what we call a cartel. Cartel, basically the idea that a group of firms come together and they can agree to cut the supply of a good that they're selling to be able to increase market price. Okay, we see a common example of an oligopoly type of cartel is, we're going to talk about that, is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So there's few countries that dominate the oil industry. So we call this OPEC. OPEC is an oil cartel. So OPEC comprises of a lot of countries in the Persian Gulf, countries like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, maybe Iraq, and others. Then Venezuela is part of OPEC because Venezuela is one of the major oil producing nations. Nigeria is one of them. So these companies, major oil exporting countries, can come together, and maybe sometimes they may decide to cut the global supply of oil. And then because the idea is that they want to make a lot of profit. When they cut the supply of global supply of oil, the oil price is going to increase to the roof. And that's how they make a lot of money. So then we're going to talk about a popular concept, what we call the prisoner's dilemma. This is very common in business strategy. Okay. So prisoners are dilemma. This idea that, think about, if you had 2 prisoners who are busted for committing a crime, okay? So 2 prisoners were busted, let's say they were busted for committing a crime, and then the police decide to interrogate them in 2 different locations, refuse them to talk to each other. You know, they're jailed in different locations, and then they're interrogating. So that means they can no longer talk to each other because they want to find information. So those 2 prisoners have got a choice. They either, okay, both of them might decide to confess to a crime. Or one prisoner may be selfish, may refuse to confess, not confess, then the other prisoner might confess. So if one of the 2 prisoners confesses to the crime, they may get a lesser sentence. if they both choose to confess, they may all get a lower sentence. But if one of the prisoners decide not to confess and one prisoner confesses to a crime, then the prisoner with the payoff is going to be really severe for the prisoner who does not confess to the crime. Because once their body confesses the crime, that means they actually committed a crime. If they don't commit, then the district attorneys, whoever is going to prosecute them, will view them differently when it comes to sentencing. So we'll talk about also, we're gonna bring that idea of prisoners' dilemmas into like say two companies that dominate an industry, like let's say Home Depot and Lowe's. Home Depot and Lowe's may decide to collude and say they're gonna set a price, and they're gonna say, well, let's all lower the price of our product. Then they all get similar payoff. Or they may all decide that let's increase the price of our product, and then they get the same payoff. But if Lowe's decide to cheat and say, well, I'm going to increase the price, and Home Depot decides to keep the price low, Home Depot may have a higher payoff matrix than Lowe's. It can be the other way around. So we're going to talk about that. And then we also talk about the strategy, which is called dominant strategy. And then we shall talk about when are cartels and oligopolies most successful. We shall also talk about government policy toward curtailing the activities of cartels and oligopolies. Then we shall talk about business strategy and changing the game. And then some key takeaways. So just to kickstart things off, an oligopoly is an industry that is dominated by a small number of firms. As I said, oligopolies, those are two Latin words. Oligo means few, polis means sellers. Few, a market which has got few sellers. And I said a cartel is an oligopoly that tries to act together, to reduce supply, raise price, and increase profit. That's exactly what we see with that oil cartel, OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. They did something which was substantial in the 70s, in the mid-70s. OPEC decided to cut the global supply of oil by a lot. Oil prices more than triple. That's how bad it was in the 1970s. Because OPEC became greedy. They cut the supply of oil and screwed everybody else because they wanted a profit from oil to themselves. So, but even when an oligopoly is not able to collude, if let's say oil companies decide to disintegrate and they don't collude and form a cartel, the prices under oligopoly are still likely going to be higher than in a competitive market. So the game theory is basically a theory which we use to model decisions in situations where players interact, or like say producers are interacting or are colluding in a marketplace. Okay. So oligopoly is a market that is dominated by a small number of firms. A cartel is a group of suppliers who try to act as if they were a monopoly, because they want to act together and cut supply and to increase the price. So let's talk about a strategic decision-making. So decision-making in situations that are interactive is what we're calling strategic decision-making. An oligopoly, so let's self-check ourselves. Yeah? An oligopoly market is a market that is dominated by few firms. So C is a correct choice. We just talked about that. That's a classic definition of oligopoly right there. A market in which is dominated by few sellers. Okay. So as I say, the example of a cartel is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. It's a cartel of oil exporting countries. So between 1970s and 1974, OPEC cut on its production of oil, global supply of oil. Can you believe the price of a barrel of oil shot from $7 per barrel to $38 per barrel? That's how bad it was between 1970 and 1974 when OPEC did that. Okay. So this is what you see happening: the price, the price of oil, real price of oil. You can see when OPEC decided to cut the global price supply of oil. Look at how the oil prices started rising. Okay, it went up there. It's a very high price increase. And you can see that after that, prices came again. Then they did something again in the mid-2000s. They did the same thing too. Okay. So let's look at how cartels work. Because when cartels, a group of firms that are producing the same product like oil, countries come together and say, let's collude and just cut the supply of oil, they're going to act as if they're monopolies because they become like one. The decision, it is a one decision made by a group of companies or a group of oil exporting countries like Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, countries like that, Iran, Iraq, those countries. Okay. So when we talked about the other day, when markets are in perfect competition, in perfectly competitive market, we set the price equals to what? Price in a competitive market, PCs, we set the price always equals to marginal cost. But then we say that a monopoly always sets a price which is above the marginal cost, a markup on marginal cost. So the price, which will be if oil companies come together and form a cartel within an oligopoly, they become some kind of monopoly in that oil. They monopolize the market. So that means they are not going to charge a price which is equal to, because this is your marginal cost. Marginal cost equals to average cost of producing in here. They are not going to be setting this competitive price. They're going to set the price above marginal cost, the price on the demand curve. So the monopoly price, or the price which is set by a group of oligopoly firms that eventually become a monopoly, is going to be higher than the competitive market price. So the monopoly, the cartels are going to be having all this profit to themselves. What they do, they cut output. For them to sell at a higher price means that they need to reduce output from the competitive quantity to the monopoly quantity. And because the output has been cut, that means they're going to set a price on the demand curve. So price is going to be higher than what otherwise would be charged in a perfect competitive market. Okay. So cartels try to increase their profits by, we talked about that they do that by reducing quantity. So B is the correct choice. Cartels try to reduce the quantity of the goods and that helps them to raise the price. So cartels tend to collapse and lose their power for three reasons. Okay, so sometimes cartels don't work very well. Some start to cheating by the cartel members. New entrants and demand response can affect the activities of cartels. Like if let's say another country discovered a huge deposit of oil and that country is not part of the cartel, then the cartel is going to be busted because now they have to be competing with what? A non-cartel member. So new entrants and demand response can affect the activities of cartel. And sometimes government prosecution and regulation, government can regulate the industry to disallow the activities of cartel in the country. Those are some of the three ways that cartels can lose their power. Okay. I like this picture here to see that the former president of Venezuela in 2000, Hugo Chavez, hugging the Saudi crown prince, Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, during an OPEC summit in 2000. What is he saying? I promise never to cheat on you. This is kind of interesting. So basically the idea was that Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, they're part of OPEC. They formed this idea that, okay, let's cut the global supply of oil and then increase the price of oil. But what happens is that when the oil market becomes lucrative due to the cartel activity, some members of the cartel may start cheating. They may start lying to the members that they actually used, they could start increasing output to be able to sell that output at a higher price to make money. But that's not what they would have agreed on in the first place. The agreement was that together they would cut the global supply of oil and increase the price. But once price becomes ridiculously high, some members will see that an opportunity to increase output. That's cheating. So that they can maximize even more revenue. So you can see Hugo Chavez is promising his buddy, the Saudi crown prince there, that, hey, well, I will never cheat on you. In other words, I will never increase output beyond what we have agreed on. Okay. So let me kind of share with you a little bit what would happen, the incentive to cheat here. So you see, under monopoly, when the firm's monopoly, we know that monopolies always cut the price, from Q1 to Q0. Okay. Or they could raise output from Q0 to Q1. They will still have revenue gain. Okay, then price would fall to what? To P1. Okay, from P0 to P1. But this will be the revenue loss, because when they increase output, price decreases. The decrease in price will make sure the monopoly will lose some revenue. So when firms form a cartel, let's say there are 4 firms in the industry and they decide to come together and form a cartel, so it becomes what they call a four-firm cartel. You can see that, they may decide to what? Cartel can increase quantity. Okay, losses are shared with the what? With all the other members. When you increase quantity from Q0 to Q1, okay, then this rectangle is gonna be the loss to revenue, because price would have to go down when you increase quantity. You will be selling your good at P0 at this price on a demand curve. So the loss in revenue is shared by 4 firms. So it's not as big as if you're a single firm. If you're a single firm, you're a monopoly, all those losses would be accruing to one single firm. But if you're 4 members within a cartel, that loss is going to be shared away. So the conclusion is that a member of a cartel has a greater incentive to cheat. You know that, because they know the revenue loss is not as severe under cartel than it is under monopoly. That's what the key idea. So one of the ways cartels lose their market power is by, competing with each other. Also, so think about it. A member of the cartel can increase profit even further by cheating and producing more than they had originally agreed on. That's what we talked about. Cheating is one of the things that will always make cartels lose their market power, when one member decides to go out of what they initially agreed on. So C is the correct choice there. Now let's talk about the prisoner's dilemma. Members of a cartel cheating is one version of a game called the prisoner's dilemma. It suggests that cooperation is difficult to maintain. A political scientist, Elinor Ostrom, showed that members of communities with repeated interactions generally find rules or norms that limit the prisoner's dilemma. If let's say if you have 2 individuals who have interacted with them, so they're very good friends, have interacted with among themselves for too long, and let's say they commit a crime, even if the police tries to interrogate these 2 criminals in 2 separate locations, hoping to find a confession somewhere, these 2 prisoners, because they have a lot of repeated contacts with each other, they have already developed the rules of the game or the norms. If we get busted, this is what we do. This is what we say. Don't confess. Okay? But if there are 2 criminals who are relatively new to each other, and they decide to go and commit a crime, then the prisoner's dilemma is going to be higher there, because they may not trust each other that much, and they may not have developed strong ties in the first place. So one prisoner may choose not to confess, and the other one choose not to confess. One may confess, one may choose not to confess. So they end up with this prisoner's dilemma. So the prisoner's dilemma is a situation in which the pursuit of individual interests leads to a group outcome that is in the interest of no one. The negative counterpart this is a negative counterpart to the invisible end that Adam Smith was telling us when we talk about chapter 1. Because Adams talk about the invisible hand. Okay, this idea that what is not from the benevolence of the butcher or the brewer that we derive our dinner, but in regard to their self-interest, that society end up being better off. That's what invisible end does in a free market. But we're saying this is like a counterpart to it, a negative counterpart to that invisible end. That sometimes the actions of individuals, the pursuit of their individual interests, may lead to a group outcome that is in the interest of no one. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And then we're going to have a dominant strategy. A dominant strategy is going to be a strategy that has a higher payoff than any other strategy out there, no matter what the other player does. So I'm going to share with you an example here. So 2 main oil giants, like Russia, 2 main oil exporting countries, Russia and Saudi Arabia. See, so the idea here is that the 2 countries can decide to cooperate, or one of the 2 may decide to cheat. Okay. So in this pay, so this is the payoff matrix. So the idea is that if Russia and Saudi Arabia decide to cooperate on how they're going to set the price of oil, you see that Saudi Arabia cooperate, Russia cooperate, they all get the same payoff. Maybe they'll walk away with $400 billion in oil profit. But if Saudi Arabia decide to cheat and Russia decide to cooperate, see, Saudi Arabia is going to reap most of the benefit because they're cheating. And then when you go to the other payoff here, if Russia decide to cheat, this box here, and Saudi Arabia cooperates, see, then Russia gets 500, then Saudi Arabia goes in 200. If both nations decide to cheat, this box here, here's a payoff matrix. So you can see that usually this is what we call a dominant strategy, in the sense that the strategy that one of those countries chooses is always going to lead to a payoff which is dominant. Okay, so we call that a dominant strategy. It's a strategy that has a higher payoff than any other strategy, no matter what the other player does. That's right. If you choose to cheat, you earn more. You choose to cooperate, the payoff is still good. So that becomes the dominant strategy. So the dominant strategy here is what is cheating. Cheating is the dominant strategy because that's where you get the highest payoff. Okay, if Saudi Arabia cheats, say they get 500 here. If Russia cheats, it's 500 too. See that? So cheating becomes a dominant strategy by both countries. So a game in which pursuing one's own interest leads to an outcome that is no one's interest is called, that's what we talked about. That's a prisoner's dilemma. Let's see. So the collusion, when firms are colluding, when only a handful of firms can realistically bid on a contract, it becomes profitable to collude. If you have a few firms in the industry and the government advertises a contract for people to bid for it, and the firms, the smaller firms in the industry or the few firms in the industry decide to collude, okay, so it becomes profitable for all of them. So firms can agree to take turns being the low bidder. That's right. They collude and say, okay, you go first. So so this time around you get the contract. Then next time we let the second firm go, maybe bid the lowest bid or the higher bid, whatever like that. So collusive outcomes may evolve even without explicit agreement sometimes between firms. So there's also what we call tacit collusion. Tacit collusion is when firms limit competition with one another, but do so without explicit agreement or communication. That's right. We call that tacit collusion. So as again, we talked about oligopolies. These are markets dominated by a small number of firms. A firm in an oligopoly has some influence over price and therefore has incentive to reduce output and increase price. But the price in an oligopoly is likely to be below that of a monopoly, but above, of course, competitive markets. Okay, so an oligopoly firm is kind of like hybrid between perfect competition and what? Monopoly. Monopoly means there's one single firm. Oligopoly means fewer sellers. They still have some market power, but not as a monopoly, which one firm would have in an industry. So the more firms in an industry, the closer price will be to competitive levels. That's right. The fewer the firms in an industry, the more the price will be closer to a monopoly price. Okay, but the more the firms in an industry, the closer is the price to the competitive market price levels. Okay. So look at this situation here. So here is when we're having four firms, a four-firm oligopoly industry, an industry with four firms. So when we're in perfect competition, price is always equal to marginal cost. You see that? So price is going to be equal where the demand curve intersects and marginal cost line. So if the firms under perfect competition will produce quantity Q0. Under oligopoly, the firms are going to cut output to Q1. So the price goes up to what? The price is above marginal cost. So if there are four firms in the industry, this additional profit, this profit is going to be shared by those two firms. By those four firms. See? Because there are 4 farms. You see there are 4 blocks there. Okay. Profit will be shared away by in the farms in that oligopoly market structure. So oligopoly prices tend to be lower than the monopoly price. So lower than the monopoly price, but higher than competitive price. So the answer is going to be A. Because oligopoly is kind of like hybrid between perfect competition and what? And monopoly. Monopoly is going to charge the highest price, but perfect competition charge the lowest price. So oligopoly is kind of in the price they charge is in between perfect competitive market price and the monopoly price. Oh, so let's talk barriers to entry. So the reason why we end up with fewer firms in an industry, why there are few computer producers in the economy, we have few firms that are producing smartphones, or there are few firms which are dealing in industry that sell us construction material, like Home Depot and Lowe's are the ones that dominate for the United States. There are few firms that are producing commercial airlines. In fact, there are only 2, the Airbus and Boeing. Because those markets tend to come with very high barriers to entry. It's not very easy for new entrants to come into that industry. It's not easy to start a company that makes planes. You know that. It's not easy. It requires a lot of engineering and skills and all that. Okay. So establishing such kind of firms is a difficult task. So cartels and oligopolies tend to be more successful when they are barriers to entry. An important barriers to entry come in the form of, similar to what we saw with the monopoly yesterday. When a company or a few companies have control over key resource or input, then they're the only ones who can produce that good, because nobody else can have access to that, where the critical raw materials for producing those goods are. Economies of scale. When these advantages that accrue to a farm for increasing production or expanding. Okay. And then there's going to be the network effect. So these are similar to what we talked about with monopoly yesterday, and government barriers. Sometimes governments may step in and start providing certain services or producing certain goods. Okay. So that can also bring the idea of oligopoly. Government stepping in to start producing goods. So government, okay, how can we regulate the activities of oligopoly and cartels, making sure that they're not so powerful in our economy like the United States? Because in America, we like competition. We don't like a lot of firms that are colluding and maybe trying to act like as if they are monopolies, because that can be detrimental for the market, and consumers may not be getting a fair share. Prices might rise on us. So most cartels have been illegal in the United States since the passage of the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. So in America, most of the firms cannot collude here in America. It's illegal. So antitrust laws are used to prosecute cartels, block mergers, and break up very large firms. So the US government has got very stringent laws against collusion. And, firms in an industry trying to collude and form cartels. We don't do that here. But sometimes governments can reduce competition also by creating barriers to entry by supporting cartels. It happens sometimes. For example, the US government raised the price of mail through subsidies and quotas. So that's another problem. So government-enforced monopolies and cartels are a serious problem facing poor nations. And then government-supported cartels usually mean higher prices, lower quality service, and less innovation. If the governments are the ones that are supporting those cartels, that's what the market outcome you get. That's the market outcome you get. You get lower quality service and less innovation, higher prices as well. And then people spend less energy trying to get monopoly or cartel privileges from their governments, but the government becomes more corrupt in that kind of case. Okay. So let's talk about some business strategy here. Price matching strategy. Suppose competing firms offer to match lower prices and give customers 10% of the difference. If one firm sets a price like $1,000 and the other firm sets it at $800, then customers can buy from the higher price firm at $800 minus the 10% of that price, 10%, but this is wrong. This should be 720, not 780. Because 10% of 800, that is 80. So when you subtract 80 from 800, that is 720, not 780. So a firm has got no incentive to drop the price because its competitor will get all the customers. So we have those, what we call a price matching strategy, where firms match prices. Let's look at some business strategies here. Okay, like Lowe's and Home Depot. So what we're saying is that if Lowe's and Home Depot all decide, this is a business strategy. These two companies are not colluding. But let's say that their business strategy happen to be aligned, be moving in the same direction. For example, if Lowe's sets a high price for their product and Home Depot also sets a high price, this is going to be the payoff that both companies get, with bigger payoff. But if if Home Depot decide to set a lower price and Lowe's sets a high price, then nobody's going to go to Lowe's, perhaps. They're going to buy from Home Depot where it's cheap. So you see, Home Depot gets most of the profit to itself. And then here on this payoff side of the payoff, this is when Lowe's decide to set a low price and Home Depot sets a high price. So Home Depot is going to get zero. If that's a payoff, Lowe's gets all the profit. And then this column here, the payoff column here, sorry, payoff matrix here, this one here, basically showing that if both companies decide to sell low price, Lowe's set low price, Home Depot sell low price, there's going to be their payoff matrix. So Lowe's and Home Depot face what we call the prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma is the idea that if the two companies try to act uncooperatively, okay, that might result into an outcome which is not good for everyone. See, such kind of outcome where one company gets zero profit as their payoff is what we're calling the prisoner's dilemma. This is similar to two prisoners being busted for committing a crime. And the police interrogate these prisoners, potential prisoners, in two separate locations. So if one of the prisoners confesses to that crime, and the other one does not confess to the crime, guess what? The prisoner who confesses to a crime might walk away free. They may get some kind of like immunity deal from the police. That means the second prisoner who does not confess will get the maximum penalty. So that's a prisoner's dilemma. That's similar to decisions faced by companies like Lowe's and Home Depot. If Home Depot decides to increase price and Lowe's decide to set a lower price, because both of those competitors are selling similar products. If I want to buy a lawn mowing machine, I can, whether buy from Home Depot or buy from Lowe's, they're selling the same thing or similar products. So if one of the companies lower their price and the other ones sell it at a high price, guess what? The person who sets a higher price may get zero profit. So that's kind of like the prisoner's dilemma right there. Okay. But there's also what we call a price matching game. This is a case where firms try to match their prices, right? So you can see if Home Depot sets a higher price of 1,000 and Lowe's sets a higher price of what? 1,000 as well, they get the same payoff. But there's gonna be but what about if Home Depot sets a high price of 1,000 and Lowe's sets a low price of 800? See, because of the price matching game, you see, the Home Depot can still get what? Profit or pay of $780,000. Okay. And then the low, when Home Depot sets a low price of 800 and Lowe's sets a high price of 1,000, see what might happen. Lowe's actually may, see? So this is what we're calling the price matching, or which is the opposite. It's the opposite of the prisoner's dilemma. That's the price matching game. Okay. If they both set a low price of 800, then the payoff is the same. And if they all set a high price, the payoff is the same. But if one firm sets a low price here, it's the opposite of the prisoner's dilemma. That's a price matching game. There's also another business strategy that most companies especially companies, this happens a lot in airlines, okay? Like the frequent flyer program where they, Delta may say that if you buy the frequent flyer mileage with us, the more you fly with us, the more we're gonna give you like discounts on your tickets. Sometimes you may fly for free because if you accumulated a lot of mileage. So the loyalty plans reward regular customer with special treatment for a better price. But once customers are locked in, then firms don't have to compete as much because they know they now have loyal customers. And firms eventually can raise the price, knowing that their customers are now too loyal to them. They're less likely to switch to what? Buying maybe airline tickets from somebody else. If you're locked in as a Delta customer because you have a lot of frequent mile over time, you are less likely going to switch to flying with Southwest or maybe American Airlines, okay? Even if Delta may one day raise the price of their ticket because you're already a loyal customer who has been built, So if a firm raises the price, its customers will remain loyal. If it lowers price, other firms' customers will also remain loyal to their what? To the companies they are, So loyalty increases monopoly power and results in higher prices in the long run. That's what it does. And then let's talk about innovation here. So the pursuit of market power can lead to innovation and product differentiation. One reason firms innovate is to produce a product with fewer substitutes. That is always true. Fewer substitutes mean more inelastic demand, leading in turn to higher price and profits. So firms also compete by differentiating their product with different styles and features. That's right. Those few firms in the industry might be selling, let's say Home Depot and Lowe's. Go back there. Home Depot to be more making sure that products are attractive to customers, to attract more customers, they may package their products a little bit differently. Okay, they try to differentiate their products from those coming from Lowe's. So as I said, loyalty plans tend to lead to what? Higher prices. Because what companies do are once you lock into the loyalty, customers are locked in as loyal customers, then eventually going to raise the price. So by encouraging locked-in loyalty plans lead to monopoly power, and thus eventually monopolies have the power to then what? Raise prices in the long run. Because once they know their customers are loyal, they're not going to move. That gives them the incentive to what? To lower to increase price. So here are the few takeaways from this chapter. It's a fairly short chapter. So an oligopoly is a market dominated by a small number of firms. So oligopolies form when there are significant barriers to entry, which is kind of similar to what we talked about with monopolies as well. So the prices in an oligopoly tend to be below the monopoly price, but above competitive prices. Okay, so it's kind of like hybrid between those two prices. A cartel, we talk about, is an oligopoly that maximize the profit by limiting competition and producing monopoly quantity. Kind of like oil cartel, like the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries that we talked about. Okay. So most cartels are not stable. Either members can cheat or new competitors enter the market that will bust up the cartel. Governments break up some cartels, but enforce many others. Okay. Game theory is a study of strategic interactions between firms that are maybe operating in an industry with producing similar products. Oh, sorry, similar or highly homogeneous products. So game theory is a study of strategic interaction. The Prisoner's Dilemma game explains why cheating is common in cartels. That's right. So firms can reduce competitive pressures through price matching, loyalty programs, and innovation. That's right. So this concludes the discussion of this oligopoly. It's very, very simple. So again, I'm going to pause this recording at Canvas once I convert it to a permanent YouTube link so that you can download, watch it multiple times. Thank you. I'll see you guys again next time. So we only want one chapter left on microeconomic topics. One market structure, which is monopolistic competition. So that's going to be an industry which is characterized by many firms, that firms can what? Differentiate their products. The differentiation in the products can come through branding, packaging, and stuff like that, trademarks. Okay. But because farms can differentiate their products under monopolistic competition, they also are going to have like some kind of market power to raise the price of their product. So I'll see you guys. I'll talk to you guys again later. Let's stop here for now.